Hey, what's up, Brew Crew? Opie here. Welcome back to the Brew City Gardener channel, where today I'm going to show you how I turn this and all these wonderful ripe tomatoes into just an incredible and versatile tomato sauce. It's quite the process. It's quite a lengthy process, and I wouldn't say it's a lot of fun, but it's very rewarding. And the sauce will literally last us all the way through next summer. So it's definitely worth the effort, and it's going to be far better than any sauce that you can get from a jar or a can from the grocery store. So come along and I'll show you how I do it, and maybe you'll learn something along the way. All right, guys, let's do it. All right, so to be quite honest, I'm actually using tomatoes that I harvested last year. I haven't even started processing this year's tomatoes. And that's because, you know, last year, and even though I had somebody ask me if I could show them how I make my tomato sauce, and I said yes, and like a week later, I broke my finger and ended up having to have surgery, and it was a great big ordeal, so I didn't get to make my sauce last year, so I've still got all of last year's tomatoes. Now, I did make one batch last weekend, and it made quite a bit, about 12 quarts or so. I still have the other half of my tomatoes that I had in storage in the freezer. So that's what we're going to be processing today. And to be honest with you, I prefer to process frozen tomatoes. So even if they're fresh off the vine, I'll throw them in the deep freezer for, you know, a week or until I'm ready for them, and then pull them out. And the advantage that has is, if you can see the liquid in there, so as the tomatoes freeze, the ice crystals that form actually puncture the cells and the membranes of the tomatoes, and it helps them release the water when they thaw out. So I can literally just pour off a good, you know, 10 to 20% of the water. That saves me time on the back end. That's water I don't have to boil out and reduce the sauce down later. So it actually works out really well. And it also helps loosen the skins, which just kind of helps in the processing as well. So I do prefer to use frozen tomatoes, even if they came off the vine this year. It just makes things a little bit easier. All right, the first thing I want to do is, as I just said, I want to pour off some of this water. And what I'm going to do after that is add these tomatoes to this Dutch oven pot right here. And I'm going to take it inside, and we're going to bring this to just a quick boil. And that's just going to help break these tomatoes down a little bit. These are still just slightly frozen, so I want them to be completely thawed out before I put them through the food mill, because putting frozen tomatoes through a food mill really doesn't work very well at all. So it's just going to help the process out. It brings everything up to temperature, thaws it out, helps break it down, makes it easier to put it through the food mill. Now, you can certainly use fresh tomatoes and skip this step, but I would recommend just go ahead and heating it up, because it just really makes things so much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this up. We'll take it inside and get it on the heat. Now, in case you're wondering, I am using several different types of tomatoes. So I don't use any one particular type. I just take a whole mix from the garden and just mix them all together. And it really makes a nice, complex tasting flavored sauce. So, I mean, as you can see, I've got the dark brown or purple tomatoes. I've got just the regular reds. I've even got some yellows in here. So when it all comes together, it really is a nice complex flavor. It's really delicious. As far as the water that I'm pouring off these, I'll let that come up to temperature. It's still really cold, but I'll just dump this out in the garden. I mean, there's plenty of nutrients in here, and it's not something I just want to throw down the drain or toss out into the lawn. I'll actually put it around some plants out here in the garden and, you know, put it to use. All right, guys, just to clarify, I'm not actually bringing this up to a boil. I just want it to be warm so that I know that there's no icicles left in it, that it's not frozen whatsoever. And I'm kind of mashing the tomatoes up a little bit just to loosen them up. Now you could bring this to a boil if you want, but you're gonna risk scalding yourself while you're processing these through the food mill, and obviously nobody wants that. So I'm just getting them warm, kind of lukewarm, and breaking the tomatoes up. And it's just gonna help me feed them through the food mill. It's gonna make things a lot easier. So this is just about ready. Yeah, it's tepid, so it's just lukewarm, right where I want it. We'll go ahead and turn this off. And we'll take it out to the food mill. All right, so now that we've got the tomato somewhat pureed, it's warm, we know it's thawed out, there's no frozen bits in here anymore, I can start putting this through the food mill. Now, if you plan on processing a lot of tomatoes, you got to get yourself a food mill. This is a lower end one. This is actually an antique. I picked this up on an online listing for like $20. I've used it several times and it's paid for itself over and over and over again. You know, they got the little spinny food mills, you know what I mean? You put it in and you do this. Don't bother. If you got more than a bushel of tomatoes, you got to get something like this. This does have a crank handle, but I can also attach a drill to it, which really speeds things up. Really makes it nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the tomatoes into the hopper, and as I turn it, there's an auger in here that will push that tomato puree through these screens, separating the pulp from the seeds and the skin. So the seeds and the skin are going to come out of the end, and all of the juice and sauce is going to come out down this ramp and into a separate bowl. And it really makes for a very nice, clean sauce. There will be no skins and no seeds in here whatsoever, so it works out really well. So let's get this started. I'm gonna move this over here a little bit so we don't spill too much. This is a messy job. You're gonna make a mess. There's no way around it, but that's all right. We'll just load that hopper up. Not too full, just a few scoops. You can see it's already starting to leak out there, and that's because we heated it up. And I'm just gonna slowly turn that drill on. You see how quickly it just makes really quick work out of this. And you can see the skins and the seeds fall out the end, and they're actually pretty dry. And we can put these through a second pass. Once we get a bowl full, I'll run them through one more time just to extract all the goodies out of it. Really fast. I could probably load more into the hopper now that we've got the auger's nice and lubed up and good to go. Just fill that up there. I don't want it too full because the auger will begin to leak around the edge here and just make more of a mess. Look at that. How nicely that just separates everything. Beautiful. It's so much faster than using a hand mill, and by my experience it works a lot better too. A few more scoops there. And look how, I mean, this dish is almost half full already. I mean, it's just amazing how quickly this works. So you can really blow through a lot of tomatoes. And if your tomatoes are fully thawed out ahead of time, you can even skip the step where you put it on the stove, which I have done. But it seems like I never pull my frozen tomatoes out in time. You know, one of these days I'm gonna run the neighbor's dog through this food mill. Maybe then it'll shut up. I don't know, maybe. So you can see very quickly I have filled this bowl up, and I will just dump it into this very large stock pot. And then once this is full, we spend several hours boiling it down. So very simple process, really. It just takes a long time. It's a lot of effort. All right, guys, so I've got several more batches to take care of here. So I'm gonna run through this. I don't think you want to watch me for hours, literally. So we'll run through all this. I'll get my stock pot filled up, and then we'll take it back inside and start reducing it. But as far as that goes, it's really a nice, simple procedure. It just takes time. That's all. It takes a little bit of time, and reducing it takes a very long time. But like I said, in the end, it's so worth it. It really is. We'll have just loads and loads of tomato sauce, a tomato sauce base, and it's just incredible. So better than anything you can buy in the store for sure. It's well worth the effort. All right, guys, so I got all the tomatoes through the food mill. The stock pot is full, all the way up to about 3 inches from the top. So that was pretty much the perfect batch size. All that's left to do now is to put this on the stove for several hours and reduce it. Now, you don't have to do this. It's really up to you at this point. If you're really into Bloody Marys, well, just leave it the way it is, and you can add spices to it as you wish. I like my consistency to be a little bit thicker, more of a sauce type consistency, or somewhere between a juice and a sauce. That makes it more versatile for us, through the winter as we want to use it. So this will become all different types of things, from Bloody Marys to a chili starter to a tomato sauce for pasta. So we'll use this for lots of different things, soups as well. So I will reduce this by about 30%, and it'll be just the right consistency for us. And if we want to water it down a little bit, obviously we can add water to it, or if we want to reduce it further for a pasta sauce, we can do that at the time of cooking. Now also, I don't add any spices or herbs to this at this point. We are gonna put it away just as it is. That way we can convert it to whatever we want at the time of cooking. So this is basically the way it's gonna get put up, with no extra additives whatsoever. I'm just gonna reduce it down a little bit. That's gonna save space, and it's gonna save us time when it comes to actually pulling it out of the freezer and using it. So I want to get this on the stove. We'll get it started. It will reduce for several hours. We'll let it set overnight, and we bag ours and put it in the freezer. So I'll put it in quart bags and throw it in the freezer. Obviously you can can this as well if that's what you wish to do. We just use it up so quickly, it's easier for us to just bag it and freeze it. And we don't have to worry about freezer burn or anything like that because we're going to use it fairly quickly. So I'll go ahead and get this on the stove, and we'll come back and look at it tomorrow when it's ready to be bagged up. So, all right. Now, one more note, guys. I am going to, as I reduce this, I'm going to keep it on a very low heat, low to medium. And that really depends on how much I can stand here and babysit it. I definitely want to make sure I'm stirring this fairly often, and I want to stir it more often the more reduced it becomes. The last thing you want is to go through all the trouble of making a big batch of sauce and burning it, because that will ruin your whole batch. And trust me, I've done it. We couldn't get that smell out of the house for weeks. It was terrible. So definitely don't want to do that. Always make sure you're paying attention to your sauce. Stir it very often, and I just recommend keeping it on a fairly low temperature. That way you can walk away from it and don't really have to worry too much about it. Of course, if you have small children nearby, always want to be careful. Maybe keep it on the back burner where there's no the potential for an accident is decreased. But that just goes without saying, obviously. So we will probably boil this down for 4 or 5 hours, and then I will let it just sit overnight. It'll cool overnight, and we'll be able to handle it tomorrow morning. So off we go. All right, guys, so because of a small technical difficulties, we didn't actually see the finished reduced down sauce and the bagging process, but trust me, it's boring. You didn't really miss anything. What we did end up with is 9 quart-sized bags full of just a wonderful, the perfect consistency sauce for what we like. And these are frozen solid now. And this will last, I mean, this will literally last like 2 years in the freezer, and it'll be just fine. We will use it way before that, though. We use a lot of this homemade sauce because it's so good. I mean, it's absolutely wonderful. I finished reducing this at about midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, which is fine for me because I'm a night owl anyway. But it does take a long time to reduce, depending on how much you actually want to reduce the sauce. But if you find that it's getting late and it's not quite the consistency that you want a thicker sauce, there is one little cheat trick that you can use. You can actually add a can or 2 of tomato paste, of store-bought tomato paste, and that will help thicken it up very quickly, and it will have little to no effect on the taste. It's still going to taste very fresh. It's going to be still just a wonderful sauce. So you can cheat a little bit with the tomato sauce, and that works as well. And I'll do that once in a while. But this particular batch actually turned out awesome. So we didn't have to do it, and it's going to be a wonderful sauce. I can't wait to make a batch of spaghetti. All right, guys, that's how we turned this into this, and that's just the way we do it here at the Brew City Garden. There's several ways. If you've got any tips or tricks, leave them in the comments below. Hey, if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here, subscribe. We've always got cool stuff going on here at the Brew City Garden. All right, guys, hey, thanks again for joining me here today at the Brew City Garden. As always, it's such a pleasure. And with that, I want you guys to have an awesome day, and until next time, we'll see you.